to nice news. So over the last 10 years, I've got it. Kaie says she's always had it, and many people are finding their own personal power and are describing themselves as it. So what am I talking about? Being spiritual and spirituality. That's what today's show is all about. And as always, we are going to be asking, what exactly does it mean? How did you get it? And what are the benefits? So that is all coming up in the next 45 minutes. But first, as always, it's time to go over to Kaie, who's going to tell us more about the topic and share with us some nice news.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this autumnal Monday evening. Thank you so much for your company. Anthony Douglas Williams, I haven't heard of him, you probably haven't, but he says spirituality doesn't come from religion, it comes from our soul. As Stephen said, we'll be discussing spirituality, but before that, a couple of nice news stories. Just going to tease you with the headlines. The full details can be found in the links we provide you. Now, you may not have heard of Chuck Feeney, but chances are, if you've ever passed through an airport, you bought something from one of his duty-free shops. Needless to say, this business has made Chuck a lot of money over the years. So in 1982, he decided to quietly set up a foundation, and the goal was to secretly give away his entire fortune. 38 years later, Chuck has achieved his goal when his foundation, which he called the Atlantic Philanthropies, finally ran out of money. Chuck's now 89, and he told The Guardian that he was very happy with, in his words, completing this on his watch. He's urged other super rich people not to wait until they've died to experience the joy of giving away their money. Another boss who has given away his money is David Stevens. He did it slightly differently. He decided to buck the trend on retirement. He recently retired as CEO of Admiral Insurance, and instead of his staff buying him a present and perhaps taking him down the pub for a final set of pints, he gave his staff £10 million as a thank you for their hard work. I bet we could all do with a boss like that. And last but not least, our last story this segment is about a tribute to Black Panther star Chadwick Boseman, who sadly died at the end of last month. Disneyland unveiled a mural in his honor in the downtown shopping district of California. The artwork shows the late Marvel star giving the Wakanda salute to a young fan wearing a Black Panther mask. King T'Challa, Wakanda forever. So, spirituality. Well, what is it, you ask? 100 people, you probably get 100 different answers because it means different things to different people. But the desire for a deeper meaning and direction is as old as the existence of mankind and is inherent in us all. Some find it in a religious experience. Other people, like myself, find it in a spiritual one. And there's some people who literally find it in material things. And if that works for you, then that's fine. There's the age-old argument of whether there can be spirituality without religion, religion without spirituality, or if the two can exist together. Well, they certainly share some similarities. They both teach that there's more to the universe than what meets the eye, and more to life than the physical body we're inhabiting now. They both acknowledge a power greater than ourselves, and they also share in the practice of rituals, be they individually defined or as part of an established religion. But there are core differences. Religion is an institution established by man, and I do mean men, because the world's major religions are patriarchal. Their God, be it Buddha, Allah, or God, is a man, and their disciples or prophets are men. Religion is organized and dictates what followers should believe, how often they should worship, and how they should conduct practices and rituals. And it can be argued that religion is forced because, let's say, for example, your parents are religious. As a kid, you have to go to church with them. So you follow suit until you either stay in that religion or you make up your own mind. Spirituality, on the other hand, develops in a person and doesn't follow a prescribed format. It can be started for a variety of reasons and is highly individualistic, allowing the person to connect to the spirit as they see fit. It can include a variety of rituals and practices like connecting to the ancestors, meditating, or even time spent in nature. So this show is all going to be about spirituality. We'll be discussing it in depth. We'll also be looking at something called spiritual depression and ask whether or not Facebook is the new church. And of course, there'll be lots and lots, Stephen, of nice news.
Facebook, the new church. I'm sure that's what Mark Zuckerberg would want us to believe.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a bit, yeah?
So we are talking spirituality. I've got to say, personally, the real start on my journey was seeing the film The Secret, which introduced me to the concept of the law of attraction. Before that, Star Wars and the Force was, for me, the most credible explanation of our greater power. And for me, spirituality is about believing and trusting in the invisible, my thoughts and feelings and energy, and believing that I have some kind of power and influence in the world. So it is kind of like the Force in Star Wars. You have to trust your feelings. As always, we went out and about and asked members of the general public what they think spirituality is, asking, do you consider yourself to be spiritual? And if so, how do you get spiritual? This is what they said.
Do I consider myself a spiritual? Yes, to a certain extent. I think everybody has a little bit of spirituality in them and do different things to sort it out.
No, I don't think I'm a spiritual person. I believe in fate and that everything happens for a reason, but I don't fully understand what it means to be spiritual.
I do consider myself a spiritual person. When my mum passed away, I did go and see a medium and found it quite useful and interesting. I get spiritual when I go to see my mum's or spend time near my mum's ashes. I talk to her and feel her presence, and that makes me feel calm and relaxed.
I don't do it very often. I only do it with family members. What we do is we light candles in a room and we sit around the room, try to get the energy right before we try and contact another family member, one that's either recently deceased or is someone we miss quite a lot, and we just try and see if we can have memories of them in our heads, think about them, and sometimes get a chance to talk to them. Sometimes it's a bit of closure, sometimes it's just wanting to reach out and see how they're doing. But yeah, I only do it with family and I don't do it very often, but it does help because it does get to help me see, or at least think about my family members a bit more.
Believing in fate means that when you are going through something hard or tricky in life, that you know that it's happening for a reason and that there's something will come out of it positively and that it will get you somewhere on your journey.
Wow, okay, so we're lots of different perspectives on what spirituality can be. Yeah, so we are joined by our special guest, female life strategist and angelic Reiki healer, Rachael Morton, who is going to help us explore this topic. No, Rachael, thanks so much for joining us. So what is your story then? How would you say you became spiritual?
Well, I've always believed there's something else out there. Ever since I was a child, I've always believed in like past life and things like that. It's really always interested me. And then when I was actually being coached myself 4 years ago, my coach was actually doing angel card reading, and it really fascinated me. And I thought, oh, I really want to get more into this. And then I actually got in touch with one of my old school friends who actually teaches Angelic Reiki. And she taught me Angelic Reiki 1 and 2, and then I've gone on to do 3 and 4, which is where I can actually teach people to do Angelic Reiki.
Okay, so what do you think it means to be spiritual? And how would you say it's different from religion? We heard what Kaie said there earlier.
Spirituality. I feel like we're all energy, and I think it's all to do with energy. I mean, like when you go in a room and you can feel the energy in the room, you know, like different rooms. I just feel it's all energy and we can all connect in some way. And whether it's past life or people that passed and each other, we can connect spiritually with each other.
So where you say you help sort of females in crisis find their identity, is that a spiritual healing, would you say?
If I feel that they are into spirituality, then I do actually bring in my angel cards and I give them a little reading. So it just helps I always do it at the end of a session, and it just helps to bring the session down, and it makes them feel comforted at the end as well.
Okay, so it's a belief. It is a belief system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then that you're kind of introducing people to. And what are the benefits? Would you say that brings them? What have you seen the changes in your clients?
Like I said, it gives them faith. It gives them something to hold on to and something to believe in for themselves as well. And well, yeah, that's what I say, really. Yeah, it just really helps them, and it calms them down. You know, it brings them to themselves and gets them thinking more, and it's very comforting. I find it very comforting.
I think that's what it is, isn't it? I think it is about a belief system that makes you feel that you're, I don't know, what's the word, protected and guided and looked after in this world, so that our existence is relevant and purposeful rather than just being random, and that we end up worm food, as we discussed last week. Kaie, would you want to?
Rachael, you talked about the angel cards. Has anybody kind of said, no, this isn't, angel cards aren't part of my belief system? And if they have, how do you deal with that? Because
I only really introduced, because I put angel cards on my Facebook, so people who know me that know that I am Angelic Reiki and spiritual. So it's only the ones that show interest that I actually do the reading for.
Okay, that's good. Yes.
How does the Reiki healing sort of enhance people? Where do you bring that in?
That is energy healing. I'd send on a Wednesday night, me and my friends, we have our own, our community, which anyone can join, and we pop a message on Facebook, and if anyone wants any healing for certain issues, then we all get together we're doing it over Zoom, obviously, because of COVID, and we send out distant healing to all that ask for it. And in person, it's like, I don't know whether you know what Reiki is, it's putting your hands over certain places.
Is it the heat one where you feel that?
Yes.
Angelic Reiki, all you do is put your hands on their shoulders, and then you just get out your way, and it's letting the angels, they're using us as a channel, basically. And I find it can be very emotional. It can make people really emotional and cry, like getting things out of them, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
I didn't know that you were able to do that kind of work over distance. I thought you had to be in the room.
No, we do it, and we do it over Zoom, which is wonderful. And it's amazing how much energy you connect when we're all together on Zoom. We're not all together in a room. It's amazing how much the energy is in all our rooms, even though we're doing it over Zoom.
I think that is the crux of this. I think for me, I would say I became spiritual when I changed the way I was feeling, and I did that through focusing, my mind in meditation, and then finding thoughts that felt good. And that got me out of 15 years of chronic fatigue. That was my background. So this is where it completely is the inside stuff. It's not buying a handbag, or not that I would, or buying a fast car or the material goods. It is about connecting with energy. It is energy, isn't it? Without a doubt.
Well, Stephen, sometimes buying the handbag or the pair of shoes is, there's a particular feeling in that, and I'm sure the ladies in the room will agree. There is a certain, even talking about handbags now, I've got goosebumps.
It's the feeling. It is the feeling.
It is the feeling, but it's a transient feeling rather than a long-term feeling. It's not the same feeling I get when I meditate, but when you go and get that bag or those shoes or that outfit, there is in there. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, I'll have to believe you on that. Okay, we're going to come back to this discussion, but first we go over to Kaie for some more nice news.
Stephen, one of the stories I mentioned earlier was about Facebook being the new church. The belief is that the social network platform can take the role that religion once played in bringing people together and giving them a sense of community. At least that's what Mark Zuckerberg, the billionaire boss of Facebook, says. He's pushing the idea of communities on Facebook as the company's new mission. He says that groups function on Facebook could give people a sense of purpose and support and allow them to be part of something bigger than themselves in a way that previous generations found by going to church. When I saw this story, I did kind of roll my eyes. But then I remembered a couple of weeks ago, we did a show on astrology and how a lot of young people were looking to the stars and social media. And it was one of the people we quoted said that was their church. Getting readings online and being on social media was the church. So maybe Mark isn't talking out of his neck after all. Who knows? Anyway, nice news story number 2. And this one I particularly love, because if I said to you, cowboys, cowgirls, and rodeos, you wouldn't normally think of a group of African-American women on horseback, would you? I know I wouldn't. Well, the Cowgirls of Color are from Maryland and Virginia, and they're an all-female African-American rodeo team. The group was created in 2015 by veteran horseman Ray Lockamy, and the response from the public apparently has been amazing. The Cowgirls of Color say it's a privilege to use their platform to raise awareness about rodeos and equestrian events, especially from a group of people that you don't normally associate with the genre. Older women apparently tend to get emotional when they see them at events because most of them, like myself, Stephen, have never seen a black cowgirl before.
Certainly different, isn't it?
It is.
Are we going to see you sometime, Kaie, as a cowgirl?
You'll see me on the 12th of Never, Stephen.
We are talking spirituality, and we're going to talk spiritual experiences now.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go to our audience. Have any of you had a spiritual experience? Deirdre, can we ask you? Let's unmute you.
Oh, I can't put my finger on any particular experience, but I do know that when I've had certain, like I've done meditation and you know, in-depth meditation, I've felt quite spiritual and had a light feeling and feeling at one with myself and the world, you know, and it's not often I've had that feeling. So I mean, that was one example or a situation I can think of, but I must admit, I'm probably not the most spiritual person. So yeah,
Okay.
But I'm working on that.
No worries. Thanks for sharing. Let's ask Chris Lee. Chris Lee, spiritual experiences. Have you ever had one?
I haven't. I really would love to say that I have. I believe there is something out there. I feel I am quite a spiritual person. I can be. My family, my nan, bless her, just there, you can see the picture. She was very into kind of mediums and spirituality, and she was a Catholic, and she went to a lot of readings and stuff like that. It fascinates me. I love all the programs on telly around it and things like that. I watch them for hours. So no, I haven't, but I would love to experience something of that. And can I just say as well, good hair, by the way, Stephen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I told him he's trying to look like Jedward.
They are my role models, my spiritual role models. Well, the reason I ask is because I've had several, and I do say once you've had something like this, you know that there's a different sort of realm to life. The first one was I had a really good friend at uni who passed over from, is it non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yeah.
When I found out she was ill, none of us knew she was dying. I got my big Star Wars figures, and I made this like video film for her with Yoda going, "Use the Force, get well soon," and Admiral Akbar going, "It's a trap," and all that. And it was just a really stupid, little sort of mess around. And I put it on VHS tape, sent it to her. And the last conversation I had was her saying how much it made her laugh and how much, she just found it hilarious, and she thanked me. And then a few months later, I heard the news that she died, and that shocked me. And then 7 years later, I went to a spiritualist church with a friend, and I just tagged along. It was that or bingo, I think. So I just sort of didn't really have any expectation. And she came through and she said, "Thank you for the toy messages." Okay. And I was blown away. And what she said, I just knew it was her. And the medium was saying, "No, I think it's someone on that side of the room." And I'll say, "No, it is me. I know exactly what you're on about." And then the second time, I've had this quite a few times. There's a voice in my head. That sounds dodgy, doesn't it? I know serial killers. I I never wanted to leave London. I had to leave London for 17 years, and I kept applying to get back, and like applying for jobs, going for interviews, not getting the job. So the move didn't happen. And then at the end of 2017, I was in a sales job, and I got bullied out of it, and I had to go through all of these tribunals and everything. And I just thought, right, I can either panic about this or just choose to enjoy it and just go with it. So I chose that. And right in the middle of this scenario where I was just resigned myself to like the heavens, I felt this warm energy wrapped around me, and this voice said, go to London, go to London. And so I just posted on Facebook, I'm coming to London, haven't got any savings. I gave notice on my house where I was living. And so that was on the Tuesday. On the Thursday, I drove up to London. I was planning to stay in a hostel. I was just going to do what this said. And then a friend said, you can move in with me for a week. And then literally within a week, I got myself a job, a flat, and a new life in London. And once you've had that experience, how can you explain that? You could not, that wasn't anything outside. That was an energy within me. Once you've had that experience, you're never the same again. You're not. You look at the world differently. The things that you took for granted, you don't. And you then tap in. I don't know about you, Stephen, but I started to tap more into my spirituality, a lot more into my spirituality. My impression is that a lot of people are scared of being spiritual because they think it's about ghosts and witchcraft and spells, and it's not. If you believe, as Rachael says, we are all energy, then there are different vibrations and different frequencies. So we're operating on one and others are operating on a slightly different one. We've got some technical issues because we've got some other people want to share their stories. So while we sort out the technical issues, we're going to go over to Kaie earlier than planned.
Again, on a previous show, we've discussed depression and its causes. One of which, the main one, is believed to be a chemical imbalance in the brain, normally low levels of serotonin. But there's so many other factors that can lead to depression, like job losses, discrimination, and the end of relationships. Spiritual depression wasn't a term that I had ever heard of, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It was initially used for people having a religious crisis of faith. But for most of us, there's another more familiar type of spiritual crisis that we're familiar with, and that is the midlife crisis. We joke and say men have midlife crises, but women do too. That point where you look at your life and you suddenly realize that the way you have been living your life for the last X number of years isn't fulfilling you. And it's basically a form of spiritual depression when you realize that your life is either unfulfilling or shallow or materialistic, coupled with a yearning for a more authentic, meaningful way of life. Now, as we've joked, some men think that buying a sports car or designer clothes or using drugs or trading in your long-term partner for a younger model will help you. Others look at it, let me go and buy the latest shoes, the latest handbags, redo my wardrobe. But many people, many people are looking for a more spiritual and personal way of getting over this spiritual depression and making their lives so much better. So spiritual depression, look out for that. And this is a fun, nice news story. A guy called Robert Fuller, during the lockdown, built a playground in the back garden for his children. He also noticed that it wasn't just his children that liked playing with it, so did the wild animals and birds that lived in the garden. Now, as Robert says, he doesn't have a small patch. He's got about, I think he says, half an acre of garden. But what he noticed was that once the girls went inside, the wildlife came out to play. The first set of wildlife he videoed was a family of stoats, a mother stoat and her babies. Baby stoats are called kits. I didn't know that. I learned something new every day with this show. The kits particularly like the springy surface of the trampoline. So after the kits went off and their mother, then came a hedgehog and her baby hedgehogs, which are called hoglets. Another new thing I learned. Robert decided to fit cameras and lighting to the climbing frames and the toys that he'd left out. He recorded owls, badgers, foxes, and a female rhodo all playing with the stuff in the back garden. So it was a win-win for everybody, Stephen.
No, that is a really good story. Thank you, Kaie. I just want to recap on that first story there, Kaie, where you said about a sense of spiritual depression.
Yeah.
I found on YouTube on the YouTube comments under some films that I saw this week, some really good comments from random members of the public. One guy said, I used to be a drug addict and alcoholic. Working the 12 steps saved my life. Addiction is a symptom of a profound spiritual longing. Once I developed a relationship with God, I finally found what my soul was longing for. So I now understand that happiness is found within. I teach that as a happiness coach. So, and then, this other one said, spiritual is what we are. It is not something you become. You are already it, but it's not a cozy, nice version of real life.
It goes back to what I was saying earlier about if you are born into a family that is religious, then by definition you become religious until you either decide that this is what you want to do, or you want to explore something else. As Stephen, you and I have discussed the fact that I was never really comfortable with Christianity, but growing up in my grandmother's house, the only way you would not go to church on a Sunday morning is if you were dead.
Well, our next two guests are going to share with us their journeys. Our first guest is Deeja here. So what is your journey then, Deeja?
So my journey, so what happened is last summer, I've always felt I'm a religious person, but I would say I learned religion from the perspective of memorization more than feeling exactly.
Feeling, that's what we said earlier.
Yeah, feeling exactly, the words. So basically, I have grown up learning the Quran and the prophetic teachings, but most of the things has been, from a theoretical perspective, not on practical perspective, because I don't know, for some reason there was a mismatch between the two. And then last summer, I found myself in a very, very challenging situation. I was in a very challenging marriage. And then at the very same time, my lead supervisor for my PhD decided to move countries. So that meant my project was gonna, we had to work out how it's gonna work. And for me, it was just so devastating that everything was happening at the same time. And I also lost a friendship that I, at that time, thought was good for me, but later on I learned it was removed for a purpose.
Yeah.
So
you had to go through a rebirth.
Yeah, it was really, really tough. But at that point, because I had, this foundation with me, I did believe there was, I'm not the only one who's being tested with this. There are people who've gone through the exact same thing that I've been tested with. I need to find them.
So what one big thing then would you say you've embraced in becoming spiritual? Is there a tool or technique?
I would say, so during that process, I was introduced to, first of all, I came to learn the Serenity Prayer, which is, oh God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
A previous guest has mentioned that, haven't they?
Yes, and that's another one of my go-tos. And to me, the most powerful line of that prayer is the last one. The wisdom to know the difference. That's where we all, until you get that, you will just be spinning in the wind. Once you get that, it just makes life so much easier.
That's very true, and for me it was just that. And through that process, and every time, because I met up with a whole community, and every time I would ask them, what should I do, or whatever, whenever I would have challenges, they would tell me the answers would come. Carry on, carry on. Your answers will come. And I
that
just
trust in the power, a greater power.
Yeah. And I just continued that. And the thing is, when I reflect back with what the Quran teaches us, God tells us, he does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. And now look at that as a muscle. You're working out in the gym. When you want to build more muscle, what happens? You test
the muscle.
So you add your weights, right? So that's the thing. So the more I carried on to push myself and learn more, and also I've read lots of books through this whole experience, and also practicing my prayer, and journaling has been amazing with everything, and the gratitude journal as well, and meditation. Because with meditation, one of the things I would say that has really helped me is just learning to live in that uncertainty and being at peace with it.
Wow, okay. So it's all stuff that we've covered already on the show.
Yeah.
We tried to make the show quite intelligent and wise. Myself and Kaie, we are wise creatures, really, aren't we, Kaie?
We try to be. No, but it's just wonderful listening to you, because it's like, we will always be challenged. We will always be tested. It's part of life. If anybody says we're not challenged and we're not tested, then you are living a very boring life, and you're not living it to your fullest potential.
They say diamonds on the seabed are created through intense pressure that is placed upon them. Oh, isn't it? It's just seabed gunk, isn't it? Initially, and then the exertion pressure.
Is it diamonds on the seabed? I thought they were.
Whatever it is?
Pearls.
Pearls, isn't it?
Pearls are made in oysters, and it's a bit of grit.
Exactly. Or I've heard it's even worse. It's
diamonds, as you said, great pressure, and something wonderful comes out.
We've got our actress, singer, model now. As you see, this is our technology breakdown. So we're having to do the magical kind of
okay. So this
TVAM like chair swap kind of thing.
Right. Okay. We just do it live so everybody can see. Right.
In the edit, we'll put a picture of a frog or something like that to hide it. So we got our second guest now. Is Rachael Fernandez, who I'm sure you all remember.
Hello, Rachael Fernandez.
So Rachael, tell us your story then of spirituality. So you've always been religious anyway, haven't you? But so what's the difference? How have you become spiritual? And what is spirituality to you?
What is spirituality to me? Spirituality is in me. It lives in me. I walk with God. I don't walk with people, I walk with God. I wake up daily. I thank God for everybody that I have in my life. I thank God even for the things that are not going right in my life, because I know that God goes before me. He makes a way where there seems to be no way. And He works in ways we cannot see, and He will make a way for me. That's a hymn which I sing on a daily basis.
No, so Rachael, how do you know then this spirituality is working? Because we said at the beginning, when myself and Kaie's experience, it was just so lifeless. We've had this conversation before. My experience of religion was just so lifeless. It was just a process.
It didn't feed me. I
had more fun going to the cinema. That made me feel more alive, watching Spielberg movies and Star Wars movies, and going to church. So what is it? What's the shift?
When you embrace God, you embrace life, right? You embrace God, you embrace life. Life for me, okay, so I grew up just like you. I grew up my mom taught me God. She taught me the Bible. More importantly, she taught me God is love.
I got taught all of that. My issue, as I got older, I couldn't reconcile the role that Christianity played in slavery. I was one of them kids that was always thinking way outside the box before the box even existed. So I couldn't understand why I was in a position where I was in an environment worshipping a God that didn't look like me, a God that said He loved me, but I was born in sin, and I was only going to live a good life when I died. So there were a lot of to me, contradictions in that. And I feel, as I felt then, that if I'm going to worship, I have to worship in a way that suits my soul. And I have found that way, but it is not by going to church. It is not a patriarchal religion.
Right.
It is by meditating, communing with my ancestors, because they are all around me. I am here because of them. And when I look at the religions of the people from whom I come, that was our religion. It wasn't going to church.
Right.
It's acknowledging nature, acknowledging religion. And as one of my former therapists said, she said, you work in investment banking, but really you're just a hippie. And I am. I'm a hippie.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because it does come back, God is love. All the religions say this. And love is the most powerful euphoric feeling that we can ever experience.
It is, and I don't disagree with that.
Let's bring in Rachael. I want to bring in Rachael. Sorry, I keep pointing in this episode. Rachael, so we talked about feeling. We've talked, which is energy, isn't it? What can you tell us about energy? If all these religions are all saying that God is love, spirituality shifting people because they feel something. What do you know about as someone that focuses and uses energy to bring improvement to people's life? What can you tell us about the love energy?
Love energy. I just, in my heart, the way I experience love is what everyone needs. That's all. I mean, another thing that brought me to tears actually last year when I done my Angelic Reiki 3 and 4 is I felt that all my life I was looking for love. I had my parents and I lost them, but it was like not a very good relationship between us all. We're not very close. And I got my husband, I got my children. Don't get me wrong, we all love each other. But I still felt inside that I was looking for something and I couldn't put my finger on it. But once I done my Angelic Reiki 3 and 4, it just struck me. I thought, I'm looking for love. And then I suddenly clicked, why am I looking for this love when it's all inside me?
We've said this, haven't we? We have said this. It's realising that, isn't it? It's feeling, though, isn't it? If people have got their own individual pathways, but if they're feeling it and taking it back to Rachael, Rachael number one, right? Too many Rachels, let's get confused.
Yeah.
It's the shift of energy, isn't it? Is that spirit? Is that what God is? Where the spirit is by feeling positive energy within us, we are connecting with the God source. Is that what it's all about? And whether you're singing in a Baptist church or whether you're meditating or moving with a tambourine, it's whatever gets you feeling, it seems to be. That is what spirituality is.
I think so. I mean, as I said at the beginning of the piece, there are a lot of similarities between spirituality and religion. We have rituals, we have belief systems in something that there is more to life than just what we're doing here and now.
We are going to have to wrap this up, but I wanted to just say Kaie's got one more story in a moment, but the reason we wanted to touch this and explore this topic today is that COVID is making so many people fearful, and I don't believe whether it's religious or spiritual philosophy, can be a benefit to you if you're living in fear. And I think once you connect with the energy, which we're all saying is spirit or God or whatever, you're no longer in fear. And all of our guests on the show today have said it, there's ways you do it: meditation, journaling, gratitude. It shifts you out of fear once you put the mind. And I think this is the cure to this COVID thing. If we can just raise ourselves, if we can connect in any way with the energy that we can and help other people do that, then we're going to defeat this virus. But this virus is a gift because it's making us aware. We have to connect to this energy if we're going to flourish in any way. Kaie, you've got one more amazing nice news story, haven't you?
Yes, we have, and it's funny because it comes from Mother Teresa. She was known as Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She saw loneliness, despair, and hopelessness as she treated the poorest of the poor. Regardless of race or religion, she willingly treated the sick of Calcutta with love and compassion. However, she believed that spiritual diseases were much more harmful than physical ones. She says in the West, the greatest disease is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine, but the only cure for loneliness, despair, and hopelessness is love. The poverty in the West is a poverty of loneliness and also of spirituality. And she advised us, in the same way that she found Calcutta, she advised us to find our own Calcutta and be lights of love and hope in our own communities. I love that. I love that.
Wow. You don't get on ITV. Thank you, Kaie. My last nugget of wisdom, and then we're going over to Kaie to wrap up. Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks says, and we're going to look at her in another show, the biggest virus is fear. Kaie, wrap up. We are back in 2 weeks' time looking at the wisdom of the movies, and guess which movie franchise is going to get...
Let's see if we can guess. Star Wars, maybe? Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Over to you.
Okay, well, we've been doing this show every week since May, Stephen. Is it been May, June? We've been doing it every week. We're going to slightly change it up. So this will be our last weekly show. We'll be doing it every fortnight, still bringing you lots of really good stuff, still bringing you nice news. Thank you to everybody who has sent in suggestions so far. We've actually got, we were working out the other day, we've actually got enough topics to see us into next year, February or March. So please keep your ideas coming in. We've got lots of them. We will get to all of them. And I am going to leave you with this thought. In every religion, there is love, yet love has no religion.